I'm Chanel Dupree, and I reduce burnout, confusion, and isolation in foster care. I help families by sharing tips, frameworks, and insights as a former foster care attorney, social service administrator, and current faith leader in my local church, as well as a national foster care consultant. Listen, I want to invite you to be a part of the Sinking Child Welfare newsletter, simplifying your navigation and confusion in child welfare because this process is important enough for you to understand. All right, so let's get into it. Today, I'm talking to mandated reporters. I'm talking to mandated reporters because oftentimes, mandated reporters don't get enough attention, and there can be a 5 to 10 minute training for the entire year, and you are expected to retain and to understand how to navigate the system, how to tell if abuse or neglect is happening. And quite frankly, that's not fair. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to families because when a family gets the knock on the door from someone from CPS, it can change everything. And so it's worth more than 5 minutes of our collective time. Every state has different laws surrounding who is a mandated reporter. A mandated reporter is someone who is required by law to report concerns or suspicions of child abuse or neglect. And of course, elderly and vulnerable populations, those have their own laws. What I'm talking about is specifically regarding children. And so there are laws on the books that in it outlines who is a mandated reporter. There are some states where everyone is a mandated reporter. There are other states where it's just a specific amount of people. In most states, it's going to be your teachers, it's going to be your medical professionals, it's going to be your therapists. So those are all folks who are typically mandated reporters. Clergy are not mandated reporters in every state and across the nation. So every state is different and there are different requirements. As a mandated reporter, I want to encourage you to ask your organization for more training. Ask for more training. If you don't feel equipped, if you look over the course of your trainings and what your organization spends time talking about, and you find that there's a 5 minute overview or a 15-minute overview, and they basically say, go talk to Sharon about it, that's not training, right? That's you're having to lean and depend on someone else's expertise. And not that you need to be an expert in it, but you should have an overall awareness of how the system works, what it means when you make a hotline report, and making sure that you're making it evenly, right? That you're not offering support to one family, but you're hotlining the other family. Okay. And so ask for more training so that you can be a little bit more clear. In your asking for more training, I want to challenge you to ask for specific training, specifically around the foster care process. Oftentimes, there's a lot of unknowns and confusion about what the process actually looks like. You should be able to have someone come in and to share what the foster care system looks like. What will a family experience if and when they go through the foster care system? So understanding the big picture, how the system works, how it navigates, what your role is in it, so that you can understand what families are actually experiencing. The other piece that I am going to challenge you to ask for is specific training on neglect versus poverty. And this can get very tricky, and people have kind of different opinions. But what is clear is that poverty oftentimes can be confused with neglect. And being poor is not against the law. There are plenty of families that are experiencing poverty and are still loving, safe, stable, and consistent homes for children. And so poverty alone does not equal neglect. Poverty alone does not equal the need for the state to get involved with the family. Instead, that family that's experiencing poverty should be offered resources, should be offered community support and grassroots support so that they can have what they need to safely stay out of the foster care system and so that it doesn't turn into something else. And so getting those specifics about neglect versus poverty is going to be really important. And if your organization isn't talking about that, then we're missing a piece of the conversation. Poverty can come with a lot of different stigmas, and uh, people can have a very negative view of someone who's experiencing poverty. And that itself can lend someone, well, this child shouldn't have to, why not? Like people grow up in very different situations. No one is promised to live a life where there aren't economic challenges. And so to think that somehow that's the standard, that's incorrect. That's not the standard. The last thing that I'll say is that mandated reporters are at times in a very hard space where they are helpers as well and they want to help a family, but something that the family has told them or something that they've seen has led to the need to actually call the hotline and to report allegations of abuse and neglect, concerns of abuse and neglect. And what I'll say is that honesty is the best policy, that families typically know who has called. And so I have witnessed situations where a mandated reporter will sit down with the family and have a very honest conversation about why they're calling, why they're reporting, and go from there. Instead of it being a situation where there's a lot of, well, I didn't call and you're lying. Right? They know that you're lying. There was a situation where I was a guardian ad litem for, it was a divorce case, very contentious, very hard. And mom and dad were just, whew, it was a lot. And so the court appointed me as a guardian ad litem to advocate for the child's best interest. And so we were at the school, I was visiting the school, and I was talking to the principal, and mom and dad were there for some reason. And they were upset and they were angry and they were telling me and they were telling the principal that the other parent is the one who called on them. Like dad was saying, Mom called the hotline on me, and dad was saying, Mom called the hotline on me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So they were accusing one another of doing it. And I was just like, I don't know. And so then I go into a room and I'm talking with the principal, and she says, I'm the one who called the hotline. Like, I said, oh, okay. And so there are, people, there are different situations, but if you have a relationship with the family, like just be honest with them, have a conversation with them. People respect authenticity, and I find that you just get further if you're able to just be honest about what's happening and and share what your concerns are. If you are worried about a family and it's economic needs, there are so many resources now. There are family resource centers where families can go to their local community and get some of their needs met. There are what's called warm lines now, or helplines, where families can call and get access to the food, or figure out how to access different housing situations. And so if there are economic needs, the last thing that I believe that mandated reporters can do is really begin to build up that knowledge base of how can I provide resources? How can I share something that's going to help this family? And you don't have to be the answer, but can you connect them with someone who is the answer? And so just, one step at a time. If there are not abuse and neglect allegations, if it's poverty, if it's economic needs, if you see the stress, if you see what this family is experiencing, help them. Like connect them with someone who can help them so that they don't end up unnecessarily involved in the foster care system. And so, as a mandated reporter, you really have a lot of power and positioning to help families who are in need. And I would just encourage you to ask for what you need, including more training and more specific training about abuse and neglect. I just want to remind you to sign up for that newsletter, Sinking Child Welfare, Simplifying Your Navigation and Confusion in Child Welfare. And like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow mandated reporters. The way that we are going to help support families in need is by connecting well with one another.